Hey everybody, good morning. Can you all hear me? Let's see, is my video on? Good morning everybody. So change of scenery here. Normally I do the Monday masterminds via Zoom, and I've noticed a lot of people have had challenges in regards to logging on since their new security measures. So I just tried Google Meets, so if you're there, my apologies, I will send this out to you. I have no clue, that wasn't working well, so that was user error. So hi, Christine Williams here, CEO and real estate coach with Boundless Coaching. Also the owner of Accredited Real Estate Institute, so I both train and coach real estate agents, having been licensed in Florida since 1996. So my masterminds take on a different format. They are typically a 20 to 30 minute training session. So today I'm simply going to discuss the showing process because I realized that there's a lot of folks doing things wrong, and it's either because you don't know or you don't care. So after today, hopefully it's because you just didn't know, because I don't care. Doing things wrong is not an excuse in the real estate world. So I know that we're having a lot of issues here in the Northeast Florida area with people allowing showings and inspections and access to listings, occupied homes, vacant homes, whatever, and they're not accompanying them. So that's a whole nother topic, but it's somewhat related. So let's talk about specifically the showing process. In other words, we're going to do it from the process as if you have a buyer. So maybe next week we can talk about it from the listing agent's viewpoint. So here we go. First step is, obviously, as you go through your MLS system, you want to read the showing instructions on the MLS sheet. Duh. So most of the time, the MLS systems are connected to some kind of electronic showing system. So the listing agent has to connect that to the listings. It's not hard. So hopefully that's just a 2-second step. Sometimes in more traditional offices, you have to call the listing office and they use an internal showing system. So know, first of all, the process on that particular house. Again, most of the time it's through the showings and the MLS. So that being said, it takes planning and preparation, guys. Your buyer cannot call you here at 9:37 a.m. and you go show a home at 10. That is not the process. So you have to set up the expectations by communicating through your buyer consultation. So generally speaking, you're probably going to want at least a day's heads up to schedule your showings, because it is a process. Let's just say, let's use the example that your buyer wants to see 8 homes today. So, or I'm sorry, tomorrow, because we just said you need the notice. So, and they're in the same general geographical area. For example, here in Jacksonville, we literally tell them, hey, are we going on the north side today? Are you looking in St. Johns County today? It's at 840 square miles. So if you're in a big metropolitan area as well, even if it's a smaller geographical area, but very well populated, then you're going to need to navigate your time in regards to that as well. So the first step is read the instructions, my people. Seems simple enough, but unfortunately a lot of folks fail on that. So the other thing is again, those 8, go ahead and map them out in a geologically logical route. You certainly don't want to be crisscrossing across town or going in one neighborhood, then showing home number 2, then home number 3 is back in the first neighborhood. That just makes you look goofy or not well organized at the very least, right? So you can use that. Typically, most of your MLS or showing systems have a mapping system in there so that you can, it'll tell you, it'll pinpoint where all the homes are, and you can do it that way. You can use good old-fashioned MapQuest. If you know the city well or the area that you're going in, then it's just a logical, oh, these 3 homes are in the same neighborhood. Home number 4 is half a mile down the road, etc. So you get my drift. So the first step is map it out geographically logical. Okay. So then you need, as far as how do you time it? So generally speaking, depends on the size of the home and your people. Are they very analytical? Are they dragging around 3 kids with you? Which hopefully in 2020, with everything going on, that's not the case, by the way. You don't want a bunch of kids coming in to look at homes and other people's homes, right, for safety precautions for health reasons. In any event, so generally speaking, I usually just allot about 15 minutes inside each home, unless you're showing like higher end or really big homes. And then you need to allow for travel time. So again, if the homes are in the same community, maybe you only need 5 or 10 minutes in between each showing of 15 minutes. So that's a 30-minute allotment, okay? So that's pulling up in the driveway, unlocking, touring the home, comments in the house, locking everything back up, driving to the next house. If it is rush hour, or maybe there's, it's a 20-mile difference between showings, then you need to do a lot for the travel time as well. So there is no set fast way to do this other than experience. So perhaps what you want to do is practice. And maybe you want to preview some vacant homes before you actually have a real live buyer, and learn how to schedule them. So if you're going to do that, obviously as a courtesy, you do put that it's an agent preview when you schedule it, so you don't misrepresent the intentions of your showing, et cetera, et cetera. So first step is logical mapping. Get permission, obviously, so you've got to wait for the confirmation. So if you're going to be more than 5 minutes late, guys, text or call the listing agent. If you're driving, obviously you call. We don't text and drive. I mean, that should be given. But let the agent know as a courtesy, because you don't know what that seller situation is. These days, a lot of people are working from home. Right now, it's midsummer, so the kids are home. You got 3 dogs running around chasing the kids. God only knows what kind of preparation that seller has to do to get out for your showing. So if you're going to be late, let them know. Obviously, if you or the buyer wants to cancel the appointment, let them know. Cancel it, both through the electronic system and with a courtesy call or text. Again, you don't know what kind of preparation that seller has to do to get out. And I've had people schedule showings, then they try to show up an hour late. When I have folks that work internationally from home, I've had people just not show up. It is rude. Rude, my people, rude. I don't care if it's vacant or not. If you are not going to show up for an appointment, you cancel. Doctors will charge us, right, for cancellations, for no-shows and cancellations. So cancel. I mean, I don't even know why people don't do that. If the buyers are meeting you, which these days that's probably most often the case, they follow you and meet you there. I don't know of many instances these days where we carry people around in our cars. If you do, that's perfectly fine, as long as you're practicing the guidelines for our health crisis we're having in the world. So in any event, what I do is once I get it all mapped out and I get all of the appointments confirmed, I send my buyers the list. There's in most MLS systems, there's both the public and a private version of the printout. I email them the public. We're never allowed to give them the private version. So I send them the homes in the order that we're going. Hey, let's meet at 123 Maple Street at 9 a.m. And then the other 7 are behind there and whatnot. I also have the sheets printed out, both the private version for myself for my file, and then I hand them the physical copy of the public version. And I tell them that that's just for note keeping, so that as we go through, they can take notes, because I'm telling you, if you look at 4, 5, 8 homes, they're going to get jumbled up in their head, especially if they end up with 3 that are still on the keep list. And the whole purpose of showing homes, of course, is process of elimination. That's why you're doing it. So you should get excited if they rule homes out. If they keep all 8 on the list, you've got a concern, that a decision-making type of concern. So it's exciting if they can narrow down the 8 to like their top 2 or 3 at the end of that showing appointment. Heads up. So you need to take notes on each house. Smells like dog, smells like cat urine, beautiful house, amazing landscaped backyard, whatever. Write down the pros and the cons. If it is a house you just know it's not going to work for them once you guys go in, I put a slash across the house, across the piece of paper. And then I keep those. I keep all the showings in my file until we go to contract. And then I throw them out to condense the file, of course. And of course, my whole transactions are electronic, but I do keep, a paper file at the beginning of the process. So another reason you want to do that, my friends, is to print out the MLS sheet. Number one, You've got all the written instructions on there, of course, and then if your buyer asks you, what was the square footage of this again? Da 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 da. Was the washer dryer included? So for, reference purposes, and also for you, guess what? The MLS is the contractual agreement between agents, so it's got the commission amount on there. So it is not uncommon, unfortunately, for agents to change a commission throughout the process, or unfortunately, unethically, I've seen them do it after something goes to contract. So print it out the day of the showing, and that is the amount that they are legally liable to pay you at a closing, unless you guys negotiate later, which, by the way, we don't negotiate a contract based on commission. That's a whole topic for a whole nother day. That's not what I'm talking about. I just mean, let's just say, for example, since this is an imaginary world today, gosh, let's say the commission, the co-brokerage commission for the buyer's agent is 4.5%. They're just being generous. That's more than what you normally get. And then maybe they made a mistake, or maybe there's just a super deal going on. And then you go on contract and you go to pull the sheet up to upload your paperwork for your transaction for your folder and your office compliance, and the commission's 2%. Wow, people. So make sure that's printed out for multiple reasons, okay? Print out the actual showing instructions. So oftentimes you'll have a handful of things on the MLS sheet. And then, like I mentioned, a lot of times there's an electronic showing system. And in there is where you're supposed to put if there's a gate code. If it's guarded entry, it'll probably tell you what type of ID is required. It'll also oftentimes, if it's a guarded entry, a lot of times these days, your buyer will not be able to follow you. You'll have to meet somewhere, and everybody has to be in the same car to get through the gate. So little things like that. So oftentimes you're going to have to show an actual printout of your license. You're probably going to have picture ID as well. So you're going to need a driver's license, your state license, and whatever else that guard needs, your DNA. Gosh knows, I swear sometimes they ask for that too. But in any event, that should be in there. So while we're not talking about sellers today, listing agents, listen up. Obviously, you want to make sure that you put the gate code in the showing instructions if it's a gated community. I have certainly shown homes and been so embarrassed with the buyers behind me, and I didn't know it was a gated community because there's a gazillion homes in Jacksonville, and pull up and I'm mortified that I don't have the gate code. My buyers are behind me and it's noon, so 4 residents are behind us in line honking at us because they're home for lunch, and I don't even know how to get in, and I look really stupid. And then, of course, the residents zip around you and they click the gate and they, give you this bad look. So, oh my goodness, gate codes have got to be communicated to the agents. Obviously, we don't put them in the public remarks. Your MLS system will tell you where that's supposed to be disclosed. I know where I am again. It is in the actual showing system, not in the MLS remarks. So just heads up. Also, once you get there, you're going to bring your business cards with you. And these days you may need, gloves, mask, hand sanitizer, whatever the protocol is in your area. Okay. So make sure that you've got your showing equipment with you before you leave the home these days. So that includes your business cards, whatever health care stuff that you need, your little kit, bottled waters, Band-Aids, gosh, whatever. So bring a kit for showings. This includes, again, your stack of business cards. Guys, what we're supposed to do, whether it's vacant or not, this has been tradition for many, 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 many decades. I've been doing this. I'm in my 3rd decade of showing homes, is leave your business card in the house. So that's just a courtesy, particularly if it's an occupied home, that lets the seller know that somebody really did come in their house. So you're supposed to do that as a courtesy. So the other thing is, and this is your personal preference, if you actually tour the home with the buyer, lead them through, whatever you do, don't be a Vanna tour guide. Ooh, look, there's the stove. Look, there's the ceiling fan. Don't point out the obvious, okay? So what I do, because again, I don't work with strangers, is I let them tour through the house. And I kind of usually plant myself in the kitchen so that I'm not hovering over them so they can discuss things, particularly if it's a couple. And you're probably going to get a prompt while you're there, particularly if it's an electronic showing system. Have you concluded your showing? Is your showing over, whatnot? So I usually just go ahead and click yes through my phone. It's either by text or email. And then it prompts you to provide feedback. I do it right then and there in the home. So by now, obviously, I've talked to the buyers. I know where they are. I know the things that they're liking and not liking. So I put little feedback based on my opinion and the buyer's opinion for the seller. Because if you go home and 8 hours later, and you're getting all these notifications through email or text to provide feedback for the listing agent, and you, oh my gosh, I showed 8 homes, I do not remember, they're all jumbled in my head. And then the listing agent or their assistant calls you the next day asking for feedback to provide their seller, and you're like, oh my God, I showed 8 homes, I don't even remember. Well, that's not cool. I've done it, heads up, but that's not cool. So provide feedback while you're in the home. Go ahead and get it done. So that way it's done, it's a courtesy. Obviously, you want to make sure that you turned off all the lights, the ceiling fans, put in all the security bars and the sliders, reset the alarm if necessary, leave the house the way you found it. Duh. So the other thing to that too is sometimes I'll go in homes, particularly more so on the weekends, and they've staged it for us. All the lights are on, the ceiling fans, all the blinds are open, and you can tell that the owners left for my showing. But here's the deal. Since it was left that way, now what? Do I leave all the lights on? Are they coming right back after my showing? Is there another showing in 30 minutes? So I leave it staged for that person. So as a courtesy, if you're not sure, obviously you don't want to leave and you leave all the lights home in the house and the seller's not coming home for another 4 hours, and then you get that nasty call from the listing agent that evening, oh my God, you left on every light in the house. What's wrong with you? So find out from the listing agent if you're supposed to turn them all off, if they set it up for your showing, or if there's multiple showings. So heads up on that. Little things, if there's a protocol in regards to you've got to wear gloves, got to wear a mask, do it. The house might be under video surveillance, guys. I'm hearing that going on as well, where the protocol says you have to wear a mask in the house. And they've got video surveillance, which in a lot of states the video is legal, and they're noticing that people aren't abiding by that. That's disrespectful. You don't know the health condition of the person in the home. Follow the rules. There's also a lot of homes where people culturally, before we ever went through a pandemic, where shoes aren't allowed in the house. Sometimes it's just a cleanliness thing. Sometimes it's a cultural thing. But if you notice, and I ask, if there's a whole row of shoes in the foyer, I usually text the listing agent if the rules aren't there, are we supposed to take our shoes off? So abide by the rules. You were in somebody else's home, okay? So here's one. If another agent shows up with their buyers while you're there and you haven't quite concluded your showing and they want to walk in, that's a personal decision if you're about to wrap up and they want to start on the other end of the home. But here's what I want to caution you on is make sure that you put the key back in the lockbox so that the agent has to utilize the lockbox to secure the home later. Here's the deal. If you let that agent go in the home and you just hand them the key because you've already got the lockbox off, then God forbid that agent forgets to reset the alarm or put the security bar on the door or whatnot, then that's your liability, okay? So make sure that you are not allowing somebody else access, so to speak, under you, which goes to the next piece. Do not ever, 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 ever allow a buyer or an inspector or anybody involved in the transaction access through your lockbox, key or code, even if it's on a combo code. Ever, 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 never. That is your liability. So I want you to think about that as well. So also, on that note, maybe you are in a neighborhood and you pulled up one house and then the house next door just went on the market, or you just missed it somehow. It didn't come up on your list for today, and the buyer's like, oh, what about that one next door? We didn't notice that one. And you pull it up on your phone and realize it's vacant. So you're like, oh, let me just show it while we're here. No, 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 and no. You are not allowed to access a home, whether occupied or vacant, without prior consent. Do not do it. Okay, end of story. So what else? Don't show homes that are outside of the buyer's pre-qualification range. So if they're pre-qualified to 250, Don't show homes at 260. I'm telling you. So I had a buyer that was interviewing me yesterday ask that question. I don't care that they can go higher, I'm sorry, that they think that they're going to bring the cash difference. Whatever that pre-qualification letter is, that's your ceiling. Don't go over that. That has set so many newer agents up for failure. Well, gosh, they're going to put $20,000 down, so that's on top of the pre-qual. No, the lender took their cash on reserve into play when they put that pre-qual together, guys. So if the number on that pre-qual letter from the lender is 250, that's the top of your range for showings. You don't go up to 260. You certainly don't go up to 275. So heads up on that as well. Also, parking. So especially in gated communities or condo communities where, parking is at a premium, then please obey the parking rules. Are you allowed to park in visitor only? Is there restricted space? You have to park in an assigned number. So follow the rules. I can't tell you, I lived in a gated guarded community for the past 3 years. I've recently moved, and I'll be honest with you, it was a pain in the butt. And most of the time it wasn't agents using my spot, but I had one surface spot. We all had one surface spot with our number to our unit on there. That was it. So I can't tell you how many times I left to show homes, or go to the gym, or go to the grocery store, and there's a vendor truck in my spot because somebody in my building was having the AC replaced or having the flooring replaced or having the rugs cleaned, and their little vendor guy was in my spot just because I was gone for a few minutes and they thought maybe I was at work for the day. So it's annoying. So don't do it. And of course, some communities have strict towing on that. So just be courteous to the parking rules, please, wherever you are. On that note, if it's a driveway, first of all, don't ever pull up and get trapped so that you can't get out. God only knows. I don't mean like your buyers are crazy, but what if something horrible happens inside the house? There's a squatter in there. You want to be able to run, get out quickly, okay? So the other thing is, particularly if it is like a wide driveway and a space for 2 cars, allow the buyer to pull up in the driveway so that they can psychologically start to come home, right? And so that the driver's side door or passenger door, however it's oriented on the lot, is closest to the front door, so they can open the door and walk up the sidewalk to the front stoop. So if it's a narrow driveway, then you park on the curb and motion for them to park in the driveway. Little things, guys. It's the little things that matter. So what else? Don't ever, obviously, don't ever meet a stranger for a showing, particularly if you've got a listing and you get a bunch of internet inquiries, people you don't know. You have to have a policy in place. It is perfectly legal to ask for ID, have them text you their ID or meet them first. However, if you do something like that, that has to be your blanket policy for every prospect. You can't ask somebody for an ID and not the next person. So that would be a fair housing violation, my friends. So have a policy in place in regards to meeting people at your listings. If you don't know them, don't do it. Or have somebody go with you or get all their information up front. And obviously another safety note as we start to wind things up is obviously let somebody know what you're showing, where you're showing, and when. Just God forbid you're in a traffic accident or something horrible happens. Somebody needs to know where you were so they can retrace your steps. So just a couple safety things there as well. So I just kind of wanted to provide you all some tips today on setting up the showing process, protocol, best practices to be the consummate professional that we all should strive to be. So again, Christine Williams here for yet another Monday Morning Mastermind here on July 13th, 2020. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye, guys.